Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us for today's Buzzcast. My name is Karen Connolly. I'm the VP of Operations for Allterra Group, and you're probably already familiar with Appraisal Buzz. I presume that's how you found your way to this Buzzcast. We publish the Appraisal Buzz newsletter specifically for real estate appraisers. It goes out twice a week. We also publish the Appraisal Buzz magazine that goes out twice a year. And before we launch into our discussion today, let me tell you a little bit about ACI. As a provider of innovative appraisal solutions for more than 40 years, ACI is a trusted industry leader. Join the thousands of appraisers and many of the largest appraisal companies that use ACI software to optimize their business. The ACI One Individual Plan is available today for $649, and it includes forms and rules, sketch software, unlimited location and flood maps, public record data, ACI Open House, and more. For more information, you can visit aciweb.com. And with that, Joan, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, everybody. I am Joan Trice. I am the founder and CEO of Allterra Group, and we have with us today on our Appraisal Buzzcast, Pat Turner. He's an appraiser in Richmond, Virginia, and he's been very active. I've seen him at Aero conferences. I ran into him in the halls of Congress. I run into Pat everywhere. So Pat, tell us a little bit about you and your practice.
Oh my, it gets embarrassing. I've been doing this for 48 years.
Congratulations.
Yep. So everybody can figure out if I got a college degree, how old I am. I used to hold the SRA and SRPA designations. In about 1990 to 95, I got away from the commercial appraising and I like the sense of having a sense of accomplishment every day, not every week. So I have loved residential appraising. Started my firm in 1990. I think that I am the longest practicing residential appraiser in Virginia. There's one or two guys that are commercial, I think, that are older than I am. But anyway, my license number in Virginia is number 4. I've served on the Real Estate Appraiser Board in Virginia for 3 terms. And I'm president of VACAP, the Virginia Coalition of Appraisal Professionals. And so I still keep my ears close to the ground and eyes wide open.
Well, that's a good thing. Well, I'm not shy about most topics. You know, going back to 2005 when they got rid of the cost approach, just as we were escalating and prices going wild, and the cost approach could have tamped down or illuminated the fact that there was a disconnect between price and reality.
I'm seeing that right now. I mean, the cost approach on new stuff is always below the contract price.
And then was it a year or so ago they got rid of the market conditions report just as the market's going crazy. So every time they dismantle pieces of the appraisal process that allow us to tell the truth.
Well, you know, that doesn't keep us from including it in our reports anyway, which most of the time I do. I don't do it all the time if it's a very simple assignment. But in the majority of my cases, I will utilize the market conditions forms anyway, because I think it tells a story. And I think that's why they developed it to begin with, was to have it tell a story. And now you're right, they don't want to hear the story anymore. So it is very, very disconcerting to me to see this happen like this all over again. And I'm not going to blame the pandemic, although I think the statistics would bear us out if we said building permits came to a grinding halt the end of March, April, and May, and they busted wide open again in June and July. So the pandemic did put breaks on a lot of the builders and developers from maybe keeping up normal pace of inventory to where it probably has now disintegrated into this overbidding stuff. And it's scary, Joan. If buyers have the money, if they want to bid $50,000 above the sales price, that's fine. But play with your money, not the bank's money.
Well, yeah, I find it interesting that you're choosing house money. I mean, that's a gambling term. So,
Yep.
yeah, and ergo, why you and I both keep saying this feels so 2005-ish again. Everybody keeps saying this crisis is different. This time is different. You know, that may be true, but there's always something different in each crisis, but there's certainly a lot of things that rhyme with the last one.
You know, I guess the one good thing I like about this one, if you like a serious downturn, if there is going to be a downturn, I certainly cannot wait to find out what percentage of bad loans were made by automated valuation models or desktop appraisals or hybrids. I mean, because I think that information is going to be very, very beneficial to us as professional appraisers to say, hey, we've told you so, that you shouldn't be playing it this fast and loose. There ought to be a professional set of eyes and ears and hands put on the property that's going to be used for this collateral.
Right.
You know, they're back selling mortgage-backed securities again, aren't they, Joan?
Oh, of course. Of course.
So, you know, and I'm
and
not
there's still a very large appetite for them because they can't find yield anywhere. And of course, you know, the perceived government guarantee is still there. And if Fannie and Freddie fail again, we, the taxpayers, will be bailing them out again.
Yes.
So, you know, that's why this time isn't entirely different. I think this time, you know, last time was more of a credit loosey-goosey. Now they're getting loosey-goosey on the collateral side. And it seems like nobody's paying attention because for some reason, there's just this complete void of understanding of collateral. I mean, it's a real estate loan, for God's sakes. I think you ought to understand that the underlying collateral for the loan is that piece of dirt and the house built upon it. And somehow those that sit in ivory towers haven't quite figured that one out yet. But what do I know?
Thank you, Joan. Our thanks goes out to our sponsor, AmRock. AmRock is hiring staff appraisers. Your best career move starts at amrock.com/careers. Joan, you have the mic.
I swear. It's also becoming quite alarming to me, particularly in the high percentage of refinances that we're doing now. If an appraisal doesn't come in where the homeowner thinks it should, all of a sudden I get a phone call from the homeowner, and the homeowner says, "Oh, my loan officer said for me to call you and discuss it." Well, what then? Why doesn't the loan officer do it then? Well, maybe a little thing called Dodd-Frank, but I have to politely tell the homeowner that I am sorry. It may be real hard to understand, but you are not my client.
Right. Now, and they don't understand because they do pay for the appraisal. So understandably, there's a lot of confusion, and they think I'm paying you and I should get the number I need to get my loan that I want.
There you go.
And so I don't fault the uninitiated homeowner, but yeah, there's plenty who know exactly what they're doing. So yeah, we've got a lot going on. Well, let's talk about appraisal independence violations. From what you're telling me, it still happens, but it's coming from different areas.
From a different angle, yes.
Yeah, are real estate agents putting pressure? Is it the homeowner with coaching from the agent, or is it a loan officer, or is it all the above?
It's all of the above. And let me tell you a funny story. Did an appraisal. This was maybe 8 or 9 months ago. And I came in a little under the purchase price. And I immediately called the listing agent at that point. I don't tell them what I've appraised it for. I said, look, I've had some trouble finding some comparables that help me, assist me in supporting this value. Do you know of anything that I may have missed? And 9 times out of 10, the listing agent says, I told the other agent it was not going to appraise for this anyway.
Right.
So, but anyway, then I get a phone call on this one particular deal, and I'll never forget it. I get a phone call from the selling agent. The selling agent chiding me for cutting the appraisal and that I ought to be able to appraise. And I said, wait a minute, son, who are you representing, your client or your commission? And I knew his broker very well. And I called his broker and I said, you better watch out for this loose cannon, because for him to be doing this is a real bad deal for realtors and for him personally if he continues to do this. And this broker, oh, he's new and he's young and yada, yada, yada. Well, we have new and we have young appraisers, but they also get in trouble all the time if somebody turns them in. Right. So it's
an accountability issue. Yeah.
Yes. So it's the golden rule. Them that's got the gold makes the rules, and appraisers don't have much gold these days. All we can do is stand up and speak for what we think is right. As you know, at that congressional hearing, I went up to the gentleman that quoted Zillow and used that as support for his charges. And I said, let's not jump off the bandwagon here over something that's being done strictly by a computer. Let's look fairly at everything that's going on. If you come in short, you come in short. That's just, as an appraiser, you have to get a thick skin and you have to go along with that. You have to be I'll never forget, I had an instructor one time, and I was an adult when I heard this, and they said, did we want to know what his definition of tact and diplomacy was? And of course, the class all wanted to know. And he said, well, it's the ability to tell somebody to go to hell and have them look forward to the trip. And I've used that quite a lot in the back of my mind. And I've also used another thing that he said, and that is, one robin doesn't make a spring and one sale doesn't make a market. So these are the things that you learn. This is from live teaching that you won't get from online teaching. I don't want to take this over, but what is it here in Richmond? The first-time home buyer is looking at a $250,000 purchase, and that's tough for young people to come up with that.
Yeah, first-time home buyer. Yeah,
the first-time home buyer is just being. And you know what? The first-time home buyer got squashed in 2005, 2006 too, didn't they?
Yeah, and this pandemic, this is going to be a crisis of the affordable housing sector, no doubt, because it's the service workers who are unemployed and are still unemployed. And they're going to be impacted the most. And so I think Ed Pinto in the CRN last week gave us some stats that FHA's default rate right now is about at 20%. That's about 2 times the rate it was in the mortgage crisis. But the conventional default rate right now is really not, I don't remember what the numbers were, but it really wasn't that significant as compared to FHA. And I can assure you, FHA is worried about the collateral valuation because they make 97% LTV loans.
Yes.
So I think the seller concessions that are allowed by policy, while well-intentioned, I think the end result is just the opposite. It does harm to the affordable housing sector. So what I mean by that is, so if you have a $200,000 sale price, listing price, and it goes FHA, the sale price gets grossed up to say 205 to cover the seller concessions.
Yes.
And then that 205 becomes a comp for the next sale. So then the 205 gets grossed up to 210. And then you have a domino effect. And before you know it, you went from 200 to 250 in a matter of a few months. And that's all fictitious. That's not value. But we have programmed the appraisal process and the thinking that price and value are synonymous, that they are the same thing, and they are not. And I'm going to jump up and down and scream about it until somebody actually listens to me. You know, people listen to Warren Buffett. When Warren Buffett says price is what you pay and value is what you get,
Yes.
they listen to him and they understand it when it comes to stock. But when it comes to real estate and this momentum pricing that we're on with a trajectory just due north, it's not sustainable. And what goes up will come down. And since we only do one approach to value, the sale price approach to value. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm getting on my soapbox. I invited you here to talk, but
No.
you got me wound up.
No, you're exactly right. And there is a huge difference between market value and price that was paid on the open market. And a lot of appraisers have not had that education, the proper education to understand that difference, because there is a difference. Sadly, they're learning a lot, but because they're having to go to their real estate appraiser boards and defend their work, and sometimes it doesn't work out too well. And you know, they scream, holler up and down that they've done it the right way, and it's because they've done it that way their whole entire career. But that doesn't make it. That doesn't make it
so. I agree with you. So
and
Pat, if somebody put you in charge of re-engineering the appraisal process, and that inclusive of that would be the development of new forms, how would you change it from what it is today?
Oh boy,
that's a big question.
That's a big question. I would, if I was the czar of the appraisal world, I would allow online training, but I would only allow it for 50% of your educational requirements. That way you're going to get somebody in a classroom that has been certified by the state as an instructor, and you're going to get some give and take and some sideline comments that you're not going to get and learn anything on a online class. That would be number one. Number one to me is the educational thing. Number two,
we're definitely lacking in solid educational programs. I would agree with you.
And number two is, you just mentioned it, is redo the form. I want to know, why does the appraiser, hear me out, why do I, as the appraiser, have to put a census tract number on my appraisal report? Why, as an appraiser, do I have to say yes or no in concrete that this property is or is not in a floodplain? Those things to me don't
have nothing to do with the valuation process.
Thank you, Joan. We can't bring you this podcast without our sponsors. Clearbox has recently added new subscribers who are aggressively building out their panel. In each case, these new subscribers are requiring background checks. Clearbox is offering a discounted background check for 30 days for just $39. Sign up today at clearbox.com. You can attract new clients, and don't forget to use coupon code CLEAR10. That's all lowercase, CLEAR10. Back to you, Joan.
No, ma'am, it does
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
So, but there are things that if
That take up your time.
exactly,
Right.
you took the words right out of my mouth. It'll take up my time to get that census tract number. It'll take up my time to track down the floodplain stuff. And we have called stuff in the floodplain. Yes, it's in the floodplain, and the lenders have all gone that crap crazy because we checked the yes box. And you know what? We go back and we look at everything, and guess what? Yes, it's just a tiny corner of that lot that might be in a floodplain from a drainage stream. Well, that property is in the floodplain. The improvements are not, but the property itself is. And that's what the question is.
Right.
And so I just think I don't know if that's something there to catch us or not. I also think that I think it's very, very unfair for us to have a form that says the highest and best use is its present use, and then a requirement to explain why we said that. That's another time waster. Yes, we're going to.
If it's not, you should be explaining why it's not. But
exactly,
yeah.
Exactly. And so, and you know, Joan, you and I both know that a lot of that stuff has already been predetermined before it's ever been, that the appraisal order has ever been put into our hands. They've already gotten a floodplain certification. They've already, you know, they know that it's classified as single family residential and it sits in the middle of a residential subdivision. For heaven's sakes, no 7-Eleven is going to go there. So
would you introduce 3 approaches to value? I mean, that sounds crazy. Wow. But you know, you and I were taught there are actually 3 legs to that stool.
It certainly sounds archaic, but you know, old stuff sometimes is the best stuff, right?
Yeah.
And
what's old is new again, right?
Yes. And I disagree with doing away with the cost approach. I think it's dumbed down our profession,
yeah,
to be quite frank with you, which hurts. Do I do the cost approach on every property below 5 years old? Yes, I do. Do I do it on every property above 5 years old? No, I do not. And I certainly don't do it on properties that were built in the 1910s, 20s, and 30s. I mean, that's a ludicrous, but
exercise.
5 years old, 5 years old is not the magic number to me.
Right.
It's not. Technology has not changed that much in 5 years that would make the cost approach.
Do you think you should have access to better data?
I think we should certainly have access to everything that Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, and VA have access to, and everything they use to review us by.
Yeah, agreed.
Nothing bothers me worse than having some gum pop or appraisal reviewer somewhere come back and say, oh, did you look at this sale? Did you look at that sale? Or did you look at this other sale? Why didn't you use those? Well, it's not my job to explain to you why I did not do something.
Right.
And I have gotten, there was an article in Working Real Estate, the last issue. The lady did a wonderful job of bringing up what Dodd-Frank requires in the request to do a review, to have a reconsideration of value. And that is no more than 3 comparables, and that those comparables be put on a grid similar to our form, and the explanation given as to why they might think that those are better comparables than we used. And I have been using that now over the last 6 weeks or so, and everybody that I've talked to said we did not realize that it was there. And it actually is in a Fannie Mae letter of 2015.
You know, it wouldn't hurt for all of us, including me, to dust off Dodd-Frank.
Yep.
Maybe even go back, you know, a few decades to FIREA and dust that off and go, oh yeah, now I remember why why they did this, because we all need a little tune-up from time to time, and so.
And I remind those people that, you know, you're almost crossing the line here of getting into my appraiser independence. You're
Yeah.
almost you're getting close enough to that line that I'm uncomfortable.
Right.
And
Yeah.
boy, they back up then. They
Yeah.
back up. They really do.
Yeah. Well, good. Yeah, I've said from the very beginning, we need a Martha Stewart. There's been virtually or literally nothing in the way of enforcement on air. I've never seen any, and I guess that a lot of that. Well, I don't want to go too deep into it today, but this Louisiana case that's been out there forever needs to get resolved, and it's unfortunate that this has taken so long, because none of the states are going to enforce Dodd-Frank unless and until that case gets resolved. So
you hit on one. There's a case right here in Virginia where the appraiser did a hybrid appraisal. The property is 100 miles from his office. For whatever reason, the board did find him guilty. I shouldn't say guilty, should say in violation. They found him in violation of a use PAP requirement. But there was also a complaint filed against the appraisal management company for inducing that appraiser to do that job. And that never saw the light of day, the complaint against the AMC. So what you're saying is exactly right. They are gun shy of appraisal management companies stepping in and trying a lawsuit.
right.
And well, Virginia did a backpedal 7 or 8 years ago and gave a very famous appraisal management company owner a license because he threatened or filed a lawsuit in Virginia.
Well, let me switch gears on you a little bit. If you were speaking to somebody just entering the profession today, what advice would you give them?
Well, that's a great question, because my daughter just came into my business a couple of years ago, and she's worked very hard. She's got her license. She's got everything turned in to get her certification. But I will say to you exactly what I said to her, and that is, if you want to get into this business, the first thing you need to do is go get your real estate sales license. Go get your sales license. You will have something at least to fall back on. The other thing that I would tell people—
You're saying that because you're concerned about the future of the profession? Is that—
not the profession in its entirety. I've got great faith in appraisers that are true professionals, that have made their mark as true professionals, are still going to be sought out for legal stuff, divorces, estates, partnership dissolving. We're going to be called on still to do appraisals for pre-listing appraisals. We're going to be called on for people that have IRS problems. But and I still do not believe they're going to do away with live appraisals everywhere. And I can say that because it's so apparent to me. We have, just like you, we have numerous cookie cutter subdivisions around the Richmond metropolitan area. I haven't done an appraisal in a cookie cutter subdivision, Joan Trice, in probably 2 to 2.5 years, unless it was a VA. So that tells me one of two things. They're AVMs being widely used, or they're being property waivers being more widely used.
Well, they go hand in hand, by the way.
Yes, but anyway, the majority of the jobs that I am getting are for outlying properties in somewhat rural to semi-rural locations where they don't have the data, okay? But I know every time I'm doing one, I'm giving them the damn data, right? I mean, they're taking it, they're using it, and there you go.
Well, the unintended consequence of waivers going to the easy properties is that what leaves you with the difficult properties, and that naturally is going to drive up fees.
Yes. Yes.
And that's the unintended consequence. And yet they're using that to support the premise we need to get rid of the appraiser because their fees are outrageous. There's nothing outrageous about an appraisal fee. It's just not high enough. I mean, I'm not going
I've
to
done a study on it.
specific numbers, but I'm not going to go there. But appraisers are not properly compensated. And until they are, we're never going to attract professional people to the profession. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now, I understand the argument. If you suddenly double the appraisal fee, appraisers aren't going to get smarter overnight. I get that. But it will attract new people into the profession that aren't going to enter and go, I can only make $40,000 a year. Why would I do this? I'll go be a CPA. I'll make $65,000 my first year out of college. So no, we've got we got a lot of problems to solve.
Yes.
Well, Pat, thank you very much for joining us today. And hopefully I'm going to see you in person somewhere in the near future. I'm ready.
We sure hope.
Yeah. We all need to come out of captivity.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you, Pat.
Thank you, Joan. Appreciate
All right.
it.
Talk to you soon.
What a great discussion. We'd like to thank our listeners for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We look forward to the next time, and we hope everybody stays safe out there.